Coming up in this video. Jesus fucking Christ. What? This intro's triggering my trauma because the last video didn't get enough views and I worked so hard on it. Are you serious? Fine, just roll the intro.
I feel like
I
just feel like
Let me be the first to say, I don't really care what you feel. Unless you're on fire, then by all means scream about it. Can you feel your way to the truth? No? Then how about we try thinking instead? It seems that the sentence starter has become so frequent in recent years, hasn't it? Was there a sudden uptick in the amount of fifis, or is it just me and my limited experience in the echo chamber of secrets? I don't think it's either, and here's why. Today we live in a culture that elevates emotionality far above the facts of reality, where the participants are adults only in age, but infantile in worldview. This change happened gradually sometime during the 2010s, probably amplified or entirely enabled by the rise of social media and the internet. I don't know about you, but I remember a time before the internet, before smartphones and Instagram filters, a time where social bonds existed, attention spans were lengthy, and siblings fought over who gets to watch their favorite show on the family TV. It seems we've long departed from such times. Ideas of modesty, discipline, and self-control have inverted into promiscuity, hedonism, and impulsiveness, all under the guise of inclusivity, tolerance, and individual freedom. Now being a digital prostitute is celebrated, and the acceptance of it is socially enforced because, hey, what's the harm in that? As if each individual lives in their own little world and broader society isn't impacted by their actions. Why are people perpetually offended by common sense nowadays? How did we get here? The first thing I would like to look at is language itself, because language is often the weapon of choice for pushing propaganda onto the masses. It can be used to conceal truths, distort facts, and change the emotional impact of said facts. There's been a cultural push toward more sanitized, inoffensive, and inclusive language, but that can only come at the cost of brevity, accuracy, and truth. And this trend has reached absurd levels of stupid. For example, the act of replacing the word mother with birthing person aims to undo the inherent biological exclusivity of giving birth. Why? So that men can also be included in that category. Because admitting that men will never be capable of pregnancy means admitting that men cannot become women. And therefore, when women transition into men and then still get pregnant, that's because they are women and always will be women, thus coming face to face with the fact that sex change is not a real concept. And we just can't have that now, can we? The word mother is such a dangerous word, right? Changing the name of something doesn't magically change what it is. You don't simply cease to be fat when you demand others stop calling you fat. You're 400 friggin' pounds. That means you're obese. And that's not a slur, it's not an insult. It's an accurate description of your reality. Changing the language around the condition doesn't change the condition itself. No matter what you call it, the condition remains the same. Soft language just aims to conceal truth and protect the fragility of those people. Well, guess what? It feels bad to face a harsh reality or your own personal failings. To admit that, yes, you are wrong about something. You are obese or you are a prostitute. These are facts, and facts can't be erased by cleverly choosing your words. Everyone knows that, especially the people who try to force everyone else to use that language. You can lie to the world, but you can never lie to yourself. You can invent an elaborate story of a flying spaghetti monster and create a religion out of it. Start a whole cult, brainwash people into following your bullshit. But can you ever believe in a story you made up? No. Yet, if everyone partakes in a lie, that would make it functionally true. Thanks to echo chambers and confirmation bias, It's much easier now for someone to fool themselves to a convincing degree that they just might actually never have to face the truth ever again. "Hey, I'm not a whore, I'm a sex worker," is a statement trying to dignify and normalize the act through euphemistic language. And while language does organically evolve over time to match the needs of the different time periods, this particular shift towards soft language could not have been natural. And why is that? Because it defies common sense. Normally, when language tries to obscure meaning, invert logic, or twist truth, common sense, the shared instinct of the population, pushes back. It acts kind of like a cultural immune system to dispel nonsense before it spreads. But in this case, the nonsense did spread. Words like fat became plus-sized, prostitute became sex worker, illegal alien became undocumented immigrant, and men became women. Common sense was forcibly silenced, and anyone who would dare speak up is risking job loss, deplatforming, and reputation ruin. The internet named this act getting cancelled. This silent majority played along to survive. They addressed delusional men as she, fat women as healthy, promiscuity as empowerment. This so-called tolerant, inclusive culture was neither. It's oppressive and exclusive, welcoming only those who left the truth at the door and bent the knee to its approved language. That's how we got here. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the mental health industry, where they medicalize normal human struggle. That's where a new evolution of soft language enters the scene. In just a few years, obscure mental diagnoses took center stage. People began identifying with the diagnosis in an attempt to understand themselves and belong, pushing forward therapy speak into everyday life. Autism, ADHD, and gender dysphoria became commonplace. And because these ideas supposedly come from mental health professionals, they are believed and echoed without question. But if you would put your pitchforks down for a second and pause with me, do they really make logical sense once we do question them? Let's start with autism, my favorite. A catch-all diagnosis with a spectrum so wide it virtually includes every socially awkward or quiet person under the sun. But if everyone is somewhere on the spectrum, then the spectrum is just different shades of normal. At the extremity, yes, there are real developmental issues, and those are clear for the eye to see. But shyness isn't a disorder. Disliking hugs is not pathology. Being organized, sticking to rules, hating small talk, it's all just temperament. But in this culture, no. They say you're masking your autism really well because you're high functioning. How absurd. Next on the list is ADHD. This one is often framed as a disorder of attention, but I think it's the mind's escape response to stress. When a child's environment is overstimulating, chaotic, or unsafe, and the body can't run, the mind does. Distraction becomes a survival strategy. It's not a brain malfunction, it's an adaptation. And then the crown jewel, gender dysphoria. The one label you're not even allowed to question. But here I go anyway. There's a condition called Body Integrity Identity Disorder, or BIID. It's classified as a mental health condition where individuals feel a strong disconnect between their physical body and their desired self-image, often leading to a desire for amputation or paralysis. Sounds familiar? Here's the classification for gender dysphoria. A feeling of distress that arises when a person's gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. In both cases, the mechanism is the same. The person has a feeling or idea that their physical body should not be the way that it is. But do you think these conditions are treated equally? No, of course not. A person with BIID is never encouraged to amputate a limb so that their physical body can match that feeling. because it's an illness of the mind, the body is just fine. Yet, it's the exact opposite when it comes to gender dysphoria. The feeling is validated and the person is encouraged deeper into their delusion, and worse yet, medical interventions are facilitated to castrate and mutilate the person. How does that make any sense? Has the world gone mad?
It is ma'am.
Let me simplify the human experience into a single sentence. Everything we do is the product of biological drivers, conditioning, and circumstance. The first refers to the built-in primal code we all have, like running from danger or seeking companionship. The second is everything else we learn along the way. And the third is whatever life keeps throwing our way. We are like different trees sprouting from the same seed. But on rare occasions, the seed turns out a little fucked up, and you end up with 3 arms or 2 brain cells. These are the exceptions that prove the rule, and we recognize them as abnormal and try to fix them to the best of our ability. But it seems that things have changed. Everything is now turned into pathology or mental illness. Things like being shy, awkward, or stressed have almost been completely rebranded into disorders. As if everything that was once normal about the human experience is now the result of a chemical imbalance in the brain. How did we get here? More people than ever are now seeking therapy, and most of them are young Gen Z. The therapy industry is valued above $400 billion, and it keeps on climbing. The amount of diagnoses have nearly doubled in just a few years. But is that because everyone is suddenly mentally ill? It's not like mental illness is contagious. Wait, is it? No, but beliefs and ideas are. And the younger someone is, the more suggestible they are. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, young people were mostly confined to home. Schools went online, and social distancing was all the rage. The social circles which they belonged to were all but gone. That's when TikTok became the #1 downloaded app, and Tourette's-like tics started to show up in previously healthy teens. But neurological conditions couldn't simply be contracted remotely through a phone screen. How is this possible? Psychiatrists were confused, and more cases of the same condition propped up, revealing a common thread. Many of the teens were having the same tics, repeating the same phrases or doing the same gestures, which is uncharacteristic of Tourette's. And when asked, all of them were using the TikTok app. This was no Tourette's at all. The whole situation was a social contagion. And for those who don't know, social contagion describes a phenomena where behaviors, views, conditions, or otherwise propagate through social interaction. Often subconsciously, humans tend to mirror others within their environment. A simple illustration of this is when someone has their accent or mannerisms change after staying in a different country for an extended period of time. This concept is key to understanding the change in language and society's obsession with feelings. And for the most part, that's enough to explain how we ended up with this culture that glorifies ugliness and normalizes unhealthy behaviors. I think therapy has almost turned into a cult, where therapy speak allows people to lock themselves in unhelpful mindsets. It's not me, it's my autism. I can't focus, I have ADHD. Does this sound like empowerment? The only thing this is empowering is a mindset of helplessness. They're made into victims without agency or control. So, my poor social skills aren't the result of ignorance or lack of experience. It's the result of a mental disorder that I can't change. My lack of focus isn't the result of disinterest or self-discipline. It's my ADHD, and only the drugs can make it right. We've taken the struggles, the uncomfortable parts of being human, and turned them into mental disorders, with the only solution being more therapy and more drugs. Interesting how that just so happens to create dependent addicts who can't function without a licensed professional meddling with their psyche. This weak mentality is nested within the language itself, spreading from mouth to ear, in a culture scavenging for labels of victimhood to identify with, where emotions come first. Thinking for oneself is prohibited, and spoken truth is labeled violence, turning society itself into an echo chamber where delusions thrive, only because none of this can survive in reality. And I understand that many of you will disagree with this view. Proper therapy may be incredibly helpful, but is this the only type of therapy there is? And is it really a badge of honor to be in therapy for 10 years? This may sound like I'm dunking on therapy, but really, think about it. Do you think a well adjusted individual who can face their own problems would seek therapy? Of course not. The only people seeking therapy are the vulnerable, who are genuinely overwhelmed by some mental problem that they feel powerless to overcome, or the gullible, who've been convinced by popular culture that ordinary human suffering requires professional treatment. And they come out of therapy, if ever, branded with a mental disorder that they use as shield from responsibility and sword against criticism, dependent on therapists and pills because they've been convinced that their problems can't be changed or overcome through their own personal efforts. This culture of sensitivity can only exist while reasonable people hold their tongues. I don't think it's compassionate to let people indulge in delusions and lies. Real compassion is to understand that we are all suffering in one way or another. But we shouldn't assist each other in ignoring the reality of it. Instead, help one another to overcome the difficulties and grow as a result. And as always, stay human.